Welcome to tonight's board meeting. Thank you for coming. Will you please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Estados Unidos de América y a la república
que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
All right.
And please join me in a moment of silence in honor of all the APS graduates who have lost their lives while serving our country. And thank you. I would now like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Peggy Mora Aragon,
Here.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez,
Here.
and Courtney Jackson.
Here.
So our first order of business will be to adopt the January 4th, 2023 Board of Education meeting agenda and the December 19th, 2022 Special Board of Education meeting minutes. May I have a motion?
So moved. This is Danielle. I'll second. This is Peggy.
Is there any discussion?
No,
Doc-
sir.
Dr. Albright, please have a roll call vote.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mora Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
And Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you. We will now move to agenda item 4, public forum. Dr. Albright, Mr. Gonzalez, will you lead us in public forum?
Superintendent Elder, no one has signed up for public forum tonight.
Thank you.
Wow.
Nominations and elections of board officers for president, vice president, secretary, and possibly committee chairs or work group leads will be conducted tonight. The term of office for all officers and committee chairs shall be 1 year. Officers and chairs may serve successive terms of office. At this time, I will give each board member a few moments to speak about your particular interest in specific board positions. You may have an opportunity before voting for each position to speak about why you want that position. This is simply a chance to share which positions you would or would not be interested in. I will open this up for discussion. Board members. Do you want me to call on you or, all right, I'll start with Board Member Montoya Cordova.
I know, I'm still trying to get my bearings all together here. This has been an interesting year. I've enjoyed being president for the board. I felt like during this last year with, being in this role, I was honored to have the opportunity to lead the board. I think I'm still interested. If that was the will of the board, I definitely would be interested in continuing with that. But I'm not nominating myself. That's for dang sure. So the only other position, I would hope that I could stay on the executive committee in some way. But again, I'm not nominating myself for anything at this point. Thank you.
And Board Member Mula Aragon.
And same, I've enjoyed this last year just working with a lot of really wonderful, accomplished women. And I think we've done a lot and looking forward to a lot of changes in the future that I think are going to be really good for our students. And I too have enjoyed my position and enjoyed working with President Montoya Cordova, and I'd be happy to stay as vice president, but wherever I could serve my community best, I am happy to do that. And I know I have been chair of finance, so I do understand that. And having been chair of audit, it's something that I know I'm also good at, but I'm happy to be used wherever. I will do my best work.
Board Member Gonzalez.
Great, thank you. I'd like to express my interest in serving as the president of the board and have also appreciated my time over the course of the last year, the learning opportunity from our current serving president, but also having the opportunity to serve as the policy chair. Thank you.
Board Member Peterson.
I'd be interested in continuing on as instruction and accountability chair. It has not been a real active committee because of the whole development of our goals and guardrails and our strategic plan. So it's a committee that has not been hugely active, but I feel like it plays to my strengths of my background in education and would be happy to continue with that. And expect there to be a more dynamic amount of work in the coming year.
Board Member Tapia Romero.
Thank you. First, I just want to express my gratitude to the current executive committee and just the time and the effort that you all put into, I guess, rounding all of us together and dealing with all of the new board members. But I'm excited for the new year and what's to come. And I guess specifically just the new direction that we're going to head forward in terms of what our goals are going to be and the student outcomes that we're going to focus on. I believe it is time to actually have some fresh, outlook and fresh blood as we move forward and to ensure that we are aligned and we continue to do what's best for the district. For myself, I will serve in whatever capacity I'm needed. I'm not grounded to any particular position, just wherever, the entire board feels I am best suited and best served. I'm willing to help in any capacity that I possibly can. And I am very excited for what's to come.
And Board Member Dominguez.
So capital outlay is a committee that I'm definitely interested in remaining in because it has required such a steep learning curve. And I think I've learned, made some good relationships outside of the district through MERCOG, and I'm interested in continuing in this capacity.
And Board Member Jackson.
I also just want to express my gratitude to both Board Member Montoya Cordova and Board Member Muller Aragon for sitting on the executive committee with you. I learned a lot over the last year, and I appreciate your leadership, being veterans. I know, didn't call us outdated either. So I have appreciated, and I have learned a lot by sitting on the executive committee, but I am interested in kind of moving to a different position to continue my learning process of all things APS. And so I would be interested in sitting as the policy committee chair for the next year.
Okay. Before I ask for nominations from the floor for the position of president, we need to establish the board's will for the process. Since you are meeting in a hybrid virtual setting, all agenda action items require a roll call vote. Traditionally, if there is more than one person nominated for a position, each nominee is given 2 minutes to speak in the order that they were nominated as to why they would like the position. If there are no objections, we will proceed with tradition.
Mr. Superintendent, I would like to move at this point that we maintain the current leadership. The current leadership has definitely moved the district. We have focused on real change, but also had a real deep sense of continuity and respect for previous work, the knowledge of the administration, and a real vision for moving forward. I think the current configuration of Board Member Mueller or Board Member Montoya Cordova as president, she brings a wealth of knowledge and insight into that position. She has maintained, I think, a real sense of unity of the board, has found ways of pulling together disparate points of view and made the board a very functional body. And I think we can be proud of the work that's been done on everyone's part in this past year. I think she definitely warrants an opportunity to continue in that position. As we look forward to 2023, there will definitely be some changes to the board coming. The experience that the people who were newly elected a year ago have become seasoned with the complexity of the district and an awareness of both the level of commitment that's existed within the district for a long time, but also the complexity of really setting a new path and moving forward. And I think that the current executive body really embodies both the strength of the new members who have come on board in the last year and the knowledge and expertise of the people who have already sat in these positions. So I would move that we maintain the executive body as it exists now.
I would move to I move to second that.
Is there any discussion?
I'll follow up just with this. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm a real student of Toni Morrison and the importance of history and having a sense of history I think has come to bear in leadership positions. I don't think we would be where we are now talking about student outcomes focused governance had we not had the leadership in place. And I would love to see us develop this new model of governance just for a little bit longer. And that would give I keep referring to us as newbies. I think I need to drop that because it's been a year of learning. But I think we're still relatively new to this. And so I'm a real buff about the importance of being on that historical continuum, even though right now we're shifting. And so that continuity is especially important during this transition. No, I'm done.
Okay. Okay. So thank you, Board Member Peterson, for nominating me particularly to stay in the position that I'm in for the executive committee, but I would like to decline because what I said before, I'm kind of ready to look at something differently and move to a new set of opportunities within APS. So I don't think we're there yet within our agenda, but when it gets to secretary, I will politely decline. And if I may offer up a second nomination for president, I would like to nominate Danielle, or Board Member Danielle Gonzalez for president. I think that she has the background to really, if I'm going to use a metaphor, I think we got on the track of SOFG. We're on the track of student outcomes focused governance. She is the lead who brought us this opportunity through AJ Crable and through Council of Great City Schools. She alerted us to this fantastic opportunity that we had to really change the governance structure for the board. And she has the policy and 20 years of history of working within education and within really focusing on how school boards can change the way they do business, run more effectively. And I think as we transition into this, new governance, we're on the track, but now we need the conductor who's going to, put it in gear and move us down. And that is definitely not to say, and this is always the hardest part, is definitely not to say that current leadership could not do that. And it's hard to make these nominations, right? Because it's not a this or a that. It's that I believe Board Member Gonzalez has the tenacity to really drive us where we need to go in this next year. So my second nomination is for Board Member Gonzalez for president. Because I think we're just a president right now, right?
We are,
Okay.
but I have a motion and a second to elect the panel. So Dr. Albright, I'm assuming we're going to have to vote on that first.
Correct, unless Board Member Peterson wants to make a friendly amendment of any sort.
No, I'd like to see a vote on maintaining the existing leadership.
Okay. Are there any other nominees for president
Besides who's already been nominated.
outside of Danielle and current leadership? No, excuse me, Board Member Gonzalez and current leadership. I apologize.
So your motion, Member Peterson, is for the three people that you, so that's what you want to vote on, though. Okay.
May I ask a clarifying question? Your words were current leadership. Did you mean executive? committee?
Executive body
Thank you for
of
clarifying.
president, vice president, secretary.
Are there any other nominations for any other individuals for president?
I think under Robert's orders, don't we have to just go to the roll call on this particular vote first?
Right.
Okay,
There's nothing, yeah, that's what the motion is on the floor.
well
You
then,
have to vote it up or down then.
you guys have kind of gone off script on me here, so that's what's throwing me off.
Mhm.
So more than one person, there's not more than one person nominated. So at this point, I believe Dr. Albright, you can have a roll call vote.
So this is a roll call vote to maintain the current executive committee leadership.
Correct.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
It feels so weird. Yes.
Peggy Mula Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
No.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Just one moment. Thank you. Crystal Tapia Romero,
No.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
and Courtney Jackson.
No.
The motion passes.
Okay.
So I have a question. So what happens if Courtney declines her position?
You'll have to ask the president.
Then what we could do is we could take nominations on the floor for a new secretary. If she declines her position. She would have to resign her position as the secretary. And then we could take new nominations for a new secretary.
And for clarification, obviously you voted yes, but just so I know, so Board Member Muriel Aragon, you wanted to stay vice president.
And I had said that, yes.
Okay, for some reason I just wrote finance and policy. Okay.
Okay. So I guess, Board Member Jackson, what we could do, is you can either resign your position today, or we can pick it up at the next meeting to go ahead and elect a new secretary, because I believe that's what the bylaws say, is that we could do that. So we could give you the time to consider it for the next meeting when we come together, and we can have nominees, or you could politely decline it now or resign it now. We could take new nominations for a secretary.
Well, I think my question then becomes, are we continuing on with the discussion of committee chairs?
Yes.
as I understand the vote, it was just for the executive committee.
Mhm.
And then, as I understand the agenda, I'm sorry, I'm not the president. I present to you the new president, Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, so the
and
next
meetings
items
are
would
yours.
be after that is that we would take considerations for the committees, for the committees that we have, the work groups and the committees that we have. So we can either go on to that, and or we could entertain a motion on your position if you'd like to decline it.
Well, I think things have shifted from the original discussion as to what positions people would like. And so maybe there now needs to be another discussion as to positions that now people are interested in before I decline.
That would be fair. We could do that. So why don't we go through?
I had another clarifying question as to whether we, through Robert's rules, can even vote on a slate where one of the candidates of that slate declined to be on it. My understanding was that we couldn't.
I'd have to defer that to the staff. Do we know on Robert's rules if we couldn't?
Madam President, I do not know.
Okay.
Past practice, we have done that. Whether it's formally within the rules of Robert's rules, I do not know.
If you'd like.
But past practices, we
could-
have done
we
so.
could pursue an opinion if you'd like to take a few minute break, if that's something you'd like us to do.
Yeah, let's go ahead and let's take just a quick break if we could get legal on there, because if not, what we could just go back and we could just do each of the offices individually then.
See what I can find out.
Can we turn the heat down? Okay.
Says Courtney. That was Courtney.
I wore my faux fur vest tonight and it's a little hot.
I'm doing it already, but we probably want to call.
You can remove that.
But it looks, because that's what I thought too, is that a resignation could occur at any time.
Yeah, I mean, you got it.
Mhm.
It can be by just giving a written notice too. So you don't have to go by and vote individually. You can just do it that way and then have that position redone.
My excitement dwindled. Just saying.
Yeah, it is.
No. Thank you. I was just gonna say. See, what I can't find is the slate. I can't find anything on the slate.
You can't vote on someone if they didn't accept it.
Right.
How it works.
Al, can you cut our microphone if you haven't already cut it, please? Can you cut our microphone if you haven't already cut it? Thank you.
Oh, he's asking. I don't know. I think he did it right. I think you take
Okay. So we have determined that by Robert's rules, if a winner declines the office after being elected, you have what is called an incomplete election. And to resolve the incomplete election, you need to reopen nominations.
For that position?
It is not that specific, but I would assume yes, because it was that specific person who declined the office.
Okay, thank you. So we could go ahead and resume. We had a conversation as well. So we understand that it was a valid vote, the way that it was done. So we did get that feedback that it was valid. So what could happen is Board Member Jackson, you can either resign your position as the secretary, and we can, according to our policy, it says you can do it at any time. So you can do that either tonight, because we are going to go ahead and continue with the selection of our committees moving forward. So what would you like to do at this point?
So are we not going to have well, I guess it doesn't matter.
The way I'm reading it, though, it's saying that we have to take a vote again for each position since the entire slate was not approved.
Do it.
That is another interpretation. It is not the way this reads, but.
The attorneys that we spoke to said that they believe that, one, the resignation had to happen prior to the vote, and that our policies required it to be in writing. They both agreed that the vote as it stands should stand. And if Board Member Jackson chooses to resign, she can, or she can stay on because she is currently the elected secretary.
But I did decline before the vote.
But you had to do it by our policy in writing to the president.
To resign the position.
No, she declined to accept. the
I
nomination.
declined to accept the nomination.
Okay, so what I'll just go ahead and do, let's just go ahead and go forward. We have I'm going to go ahead and just, well, I'll take it back to you, Superintendent. Go ahead and call for the vote then on each of the positions. Let's just go ahead and do that.
Superintendent, if I could actually just add a comment, because I just feel like this has to be said, and this is where my confusion is coming from. And this is all due respect to President Montoya Cordova's. For the past year, you have specifically told us you did not want to remain president. And initially, when we first nominated, you didn't even want the first position of president, but you said, I'm willing to do it for a year and then work on transitioning to someone new. You've said that multiple times throughout the year. And now, as a fellow board member, I feel lied to.
Okay.
I feel as if you were completely dishonest. You acted completely unethical and in a way that was just not with the utmost integrity as to what direction we were moving going forward. So regardless of how the vote takes place again, I feel it's important to state that because that was your position that you stated for a year multiple times.
Thank you for bringing that up. You're absolutely correct. I did. I did say with when last year at the beginning, when we were doing this, I was really scared. I will admit to that because it is definitely a daunting position. And I took it with a lot of trepidation, knowing the job that I have and the work that I do, because it is a big responsibility. And I think that throughout the year, I demonstrated that I can actually fulfill that responsibility and that duty, and I think I did it well. And what happened is over the course of the year, with the work that we've had, the transitions that we've had, and some of the work that we've had to do, I came to realize that I can do this job. One of the things that I do need to do is rely on the executive committee a little bit more. And so moving forward, what I'd like to do is to stay in this position because I think one is that we still need another year of transition still. I think there's still some additional work ahead. There's some work with the Council of Great City the Council of Great City Schools that have been doing some work on the back end with that. And I know with the leadership with Board Member Mueller-Aragon and also with Board Member Jackson, that we can actually accomplish that, but also pulling in the other board members into this process. I would love to be able to pull in board member Gonzalez to help us with some of the pieces as we're going forward on that as well. I know that she's had a tremendous year. And so I think that this would just give us an opportunity for us to complete that. I'm sorry that it feels that I don't have integrity. I believe I do. I don't need to have anybody tell me that I have integrity. I know my integrity and I know what I do and how I conduct myself. And I'm sorry if I've misrepresented myself or if you misunderstood that. Some of it was coming from fear that I wouldn't be able to fulfill this position. But I feel confident that I can because I do have the support from some fellow board members that would really like for me to continue in this role. I think there needs to be, I think there either just needs to be a nomination and a second, and then we start to take rolls or whatever we're going to do, take roll call.
I will nominate Board Member Yolanda Montoya Cordova for the role of president. I think I've already stated why I believe that is a positive thing and why her leadership is important to us at this moment in time.
I will second it because I believe that continuity is important.
I will nominate Danielle Gonzalez for president for all the reasons I stated prior.
And I will second Danielle as well.
Okay. So the people who have been nominated will be given 2 minutes to speak in the order that they were nominated as to why they would like to stay as president. Board Member Montoya Cordova, I don't know that if you have anything to add to your statement.
I do not. I'm fine.
All right. And Board Member Gonzalez.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to start by saying that I don't think a change in leadership at this point signals in any way a change in the way that we're doing business. It doesn't signal in any way a change or a step back from our focus on student outcomes focused governance, nor any step back from our focus on student outcomes and a strategic plan. So I think if those claims have put out there, they're blatantly false. As was stated previously, I brought forward student-focused governance back in February. I've worked previously with Dr. AJ Crable and am well-versed in the concept and also have my coach who is a president of a school board who is leading and has been doing student outcomes focused governance since 2017. So I'm very versed not only in the concept and the theory, but how it works in practice in large school districts, and I'm ready to bring that to bear for our school district. I also spearheaded the initiative for us to put together the funding for us to bring a strategic planning process on board, including the fundraising and being a part of the strategic planning committee, the ad hoc committee that brought on board Tuned, that developed the request for proposals and that interviewed all of the firms. So I'm very steeped into that process and bought into it as well. I have a very strong educational background with a focus on policy, having worked for 25 years in education policy at the federal level with the U.S. Department of Education, with many state education agencies, governors, education policy advisors, legislators, as well as with many large urban school districts. I've also demonstrated over the course of the last year that I can work with people of many diverse perspectives and can bring people together, always with the focus on what's best for students and what's best for the population here of Albuquerque Public Schools. I am very invested in this and able to put in the time. I have demonstrated that. I have continually shown up, and I am available over the course of the next year to put even more time. I'm available to have extra meetings. I'm available for meetings with my fellow board members, for community members, for the district leadership, with Council of Great City Schools and others, as well as I mentioned, my current coach and my current mentor. And I also have strong city and county and statewide connections in both education and policy, and so ready to bring those to bear in this position. And above all, hopeful that we can take the signal of the last election, which I think was a sign from our community of willingness and readiness to move forward with a new vision for our school board and for our district. So I'm ready to bring that as well. Thank you.
All right. We will now take the vote. So please vote for one of these nominees when your name is called. Dr. Albright, may I please have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Peggy Mora Aragon,
Yolanda.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Or myself, thank you.
Barbara Peterson,
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Danielle Gonzalez.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Courtney Jackson.
Danielle Gonzalez.
The result is 4 votes for Yolanda Montoya Cordova and 3 votes for Danielle Gonzalez.
All right, so we'll move on then to the next nominations will be for vice president. Do I have some nominations or nominations? We'll just take nominations for vice president this time.
I'll nominate Peggy Mueller Aragon for vice president.
I'll second. This is Josefina.
Do we have any second nominations for vice president? We have a roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
can you please say the name?
Oh, I'm sorry. Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Peggy Mora Aragon,
Peggy.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Barbara Peterson,
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Josefina Dominguez,
Peggy Mueller Aragon.
Courtney Jackson.
Peggy Miller Aragon.
Thank you.
All right, so now we'll open the nominations for secretary of the board. Do I have any nominations? I would, I'll go ahead. So I'd like to nominate Crystal Tapia Romero.
I'll nominate Courtney Jackson again.
So we have 2 folks on. You can either, we can have 2 minutes of you telling us whether you want to do this or not.
I'm looking at Courtney.
Are there any other nominations? Is anyone else interested in that?
I'll decline the nomination.
Okay. So,
Yeah, I'll accept the nomination.
so there's a nomination on the floor. Do we have a second? Oh, we have a second, correct?
You
I
don't
think
need
you
a
have to have second.
So we have to have a second. Okay. All right. So we'll have a roll call, please.
So Crystal declined the nomination, so you're only voting for Courtney Jackson. I believe you don't have to say their name in this case.
Okay.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mora Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Let's see. So where are we now? So now I think where we are is the conversation about our committees and the structure of our committees and any discussion that we have on this in terms of where we are right now with committees and work groups and leads and aligning these with our student outcomes focused governance. What I do want to say on this is that we have talked about with student outcomes focused governance is also making sure that our committees are aligned to that process, that our committees and our workshops are not workshops, but our work groups are that they come together when we need them because it's purposeful and it's not just on this schedule that goes on and on and on, but that it's actually purposeful. And I know that this past year, Barbara, you had mentioned that instruction and accountability hasn't met because it just hasn't really had a focus or some reason for us to call a workshop together or a work group meeting on that. The 2 committees that we do have to have, or the 2 representatives that we do have are finance and also for audit. And traditionally on our audit, the vice president has taken that role. And I believe that that's what's included in our in our directive or in a way that we're structured. I think it says the vice president. I have to go back and look. The chair, the vice president.
That's not in the policy.
It's not, you're right. Let's say it's a standing committee. So the audit committee doesn't, in the past, you're right, in the past, we had it where the vice president assumed that role, but it doesn't have to be that. So we can have another individual preside over audit if they'd like to do that. And finance, we do know we have to have those two committees for sure. So is there any, let's start with those two committees, finance and with audit. Do we have any interest in those in terms of individuals wanting to chair in any one of those committees?
I actually would like to stay as the finance chair.
Anyone else have any objections to that or anything to add?
Do we need to make it formal with the nomination?
Let's see. I don't think we do. Let's see.
Well, for the sake of it, I'll nominate board member Crystal Tapia Romero for finance chair.
Okay.
And I will second.
All right. Let's have a roll call on that.
Just one moment, please. I'm catching up.
Mhm.
Crystal Tapia Romero. Sorry. Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
And Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
And do we want to just leave the audit chair how we've just had it in the past?
Unless-
I don't know what.
How does the board feel about that?
I'll nominate Peggy.
I mean, let's just
Aragon.
leave it how it is. It's a very short, we don't meet often.
I'll second. So Peggy, for audit. We have a vote on that, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
And Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, you know what, I jumped around too much. The annotated thing was really confusing because I realized that part of our agenda, this is where I'm struggling because it's got too much stuff on it. We went through the elections. It's one of the things that I missed on the agenda was that we had some consideration for approval of revisions to the board policies on, and I think there was just some slight revisions. I think they were just some pieces that were annotated in terms of switching out the dates when it was revised and the who was, who was, there's just a shift, like on page 16, I'm looking at when it shifted from the policy chair to the Board of Education, the president. So that was item 7A. We were going through.
The assumption, sorry, that we are cutting the policy committee.
Oh, okay.
So I think going one by one through the policies, the action memos and discussing potential changes to them was the
Okay.
opportunity here.
So we don't need to go through that.
So we would just start at 7A,
Right.
right, Member Gonzalez, so that would be BD Board of Education Organization. Because we haven't taken a vote on that one.
Yeah. And that's what I was saying is I wanted to go back to that because I realized that I jumped straight on to the committees itself. And what we had on the agenda was these revisions to our organizational structure and to some of these pieces. So we can go back and we can go through each one of those. The first one, let's see, let me get to my page here.
So in the digital version, it's page 8 that begins with.
Yeah. So that was the first
BD
item
Board of
is,
Education.
right, is consideration for approval of revisions to board policy BD Board of Education Organization. discussion, action, and if the board chooses to no longer have a policy committee, the signatory will need to be changed. But I don't believe that we're getting rid of our policy committee. So I don't think we need to vote on that one. So I correct?
Well, I was going to propose a small change.
Okay,
So the final sentence reads, the Board of Education shall elect Board of Education committee chairs. I think that only is if we have committees. So I was going to suggest we change it to may elect committee chairs. And then that was the only change.
okay. That friendly amendment, if everyone's in agreement with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so are you making that motion then, Board Member Gonzalez?
Move that we approve policy BD with the change that I just indicated.
Okay,
I'll second. This is Peggy.
all right. Can we have a roll call on that, please?
Can I clarify that is without striking policy committee chair?
Exactly.
Thank you for that clarification.
That's true. So we're going to keep the policy chair,
Lots of clarification.
policy committee chair in there. So it's not the Board of Education president on that. But we do continue with a policy committee chair. So did you catch those revisions? Okay. So let's have a roll call on that, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
And Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And I believe the next item, consideration for approval of revisions to the board procedural directive on this one was only if we were no longer going to have, we will again, I believe, strike. We will keep the policy committee chair in there and strike the revision of Board of Education president. And let's see, is there any other language or amendment changes that would need to be made to that?
Are we on Board of Education?
B, yeah. Consideration for approval of revisions to the procedural directive for this one.
Yes, I have some.
Okay,
So under vice president, I think there needs to be a bullet point added that says assist in agenda preparation for regular board meetings. And the same addition under secretary.
mhm.
And then under executive committee, there needs to be an addition, the executive committee shall participate in agenda preparation for all regular board meetings.
So just a clarification for that, when the agendas are being proposed and they have been going out to all the executive members now, that's when we all first see them. So that's the preparation of the agenda committee. I mean, that's the preparation of the agenda.
Yeah, I just thought it was important that,
Okay.
because there was such an urgency that 2 out of 3 of us needed to approve it. I
Mhm.
think it needs to be stated in the procedural directive that this is your obligation.
Okay,
So that, I think that those need to be added. And then also a return to policy committee chair and not Board of Education president under Board of Education member responsibilities.
okay. Any other further discussion?
So can you clarify that? Are you saying that other members should not have any role in development?
No,
Okay.
no, what I'm saying is that there were very specific responsibilities that the executive committee had, that 2 out of 3 of the
Mhm.
executive committee members have to approve the agenda before it can be posted. And that was not, I mean, it was a sense of urgency that was not discussed in the procedural directive. So moving forward, I think it's important that any person who sits as the executive committee knows that this is their responsibility, that on Friday before noon, you have to have approved the agenda.
Okay, so it was practice, but not policy.
Right.
Okay. So it's just part of the procedure. And that's why I just wanted to clarify, because the agendas do go out to the executive team for review and approval. Okay, so
And then did we add to that about the vice president and audit in there, or we're going to leave that out as we have in the past?
I think we should just leave it out, because I think boards coming forward may want to do something different. Vice president who comes up next, you may not want to do it. So I think we have the clarifications. Do we have motion to approve with the friendly amendments?
So moved. This is Barbara.
Second, this is Courtney.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
We don't need to vote on procedural.
Pardon?
Do we vote on procedural directive?
Yes, we do in these cases.
Oh, and these are, because it's ours, because it's our procedures. Yeah, absolutely. I was like thinking, it's not there. It's not that goes to the district. All right. So the next one is consideration for approval of revisions to board policy BD1, Board of Education committees. Let's see. And on this one, I think is where we had some clarifications around, and I don't know. We state that we shall serve on the standing committees, but I don't know that it should be shall and it should be we may serve on the following standing committees. I think that we should state maybe that we shall serve on 2 standing committees, and that's finance and audit, and that we may serve on the others, or that we may have some other committees. What does the group feel about that?
Mayor.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for the purpose of the procedural directive, I think that's where there's the opportunity to clarify 3 versus 5. For the purpose of the policy, I do think there is the change to 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph, Board of Education members change shall to may serve on the standing committees. And then I think here is where we just strike capital outlay, property technology, and instruction and accountability, and keep finance policy and audit. And then the remaining language around ad hoc committees may be appointed and task force committees or commissions may be appointed. I think it accounts for the work group concept. So we could certainly add ad hoc committees or work groups, or ad hoc committees / work groups, or not say anything about work groups. But I think the only change to this one, again, is changing shall to may, and then cutting capital outlay, instruction and accountability. And then in the supporting procedural directive, there's some more changes that we can make.
Okay. How does the group feel about that? I agree with you on that for sure. Because I think we may have those, but we may have others. We could have other committees that are named differently, and we're not wedded to just that particular topic.
Yeah, I agree, as well as, again, returning the position to policy committee chair. And I had the same, that strike capital outlay, instruction, and keep finance policy and audit.
So how, and I'm just going to play a little bit of questioning here, because the policy committee also is one of those that's is it become ad hoc?
It's standing.
It's going to be standing. So the only ones that will be standing will be finance, policy, and audit. Okay.
Does policy have to be?
3 then.
Yeah.
Yeah. What differentiates policy from
Yeah.
instruction and accountability, or?
Yeah, why would policy be a standing? I'm just thinking of the student outcomes focused governance retreat conversations. And I thought policy might be an ad hoc.
Because the ones that are required by statute, I guess for us, are audit and finance for sure. We know that those must be in play. Now.
So, sorry, are you thinking?
Yeah, go ahead, think
Okay.
with me.
So I mean, one of the things that I was thinking about is that as we are transitioning and really putting the pedal down on this move to strategic or SOFG, it's super important that we have a policy committee as a standing committee, because this is going to be the year where it's critical that we align the policies that we have with our governance model as well as our strategic plan. And so I think it's very important, at least for this year, that we maintain it as a standing committee so that there's regular meetings about the committee. It's setting it up to be very efficient. We have to be very thorough as we go through this policy diet. And so there is this requirement that as we're switching to this governance model and the strategic plan, that all of the policies get a review. And so having it as a standing committee that meets regularly will benefit that efficiency model. if we choose at the end of the year that it can move to an ad hoc committee, I think that's fine. But during this transition, I think it's super critical that we have it as a full committee to review the policies and review go through the diet and all of that.
I guess because the difference between the standing committees and the ad hoc too is that right now, the finance, policy, and audit would be the committee of the whole, right? So it's the board of the whole. So on the policy committee, all board members would be on that as we're going through that process.
Not necessarily. I think that's something we can talk through also. I mean, my response to that question was going to be because stated in a state law, our responsibilities are approving the budget, evaluating the superintendent, and developing policy. So for that purpose, I think it's important to have a setting for policy development. I also think that the way that we've written instruction accountability, because I wrote it, was to do the things that we're now doing through student outcomes focused governance. So the whole focus on student outcomes, on instruction, and all of that has now shifted to be part of that broader focus, which would be progress monitoring that we're going to get into once we set our goals. So that then seems to me to become duplicative to have the committee and then to also have that as part of the student outcomes focused governance progress monitoring piece. And then, I mean, I think also in the effort to streamline time and effectiveness, moving some of the conversation related to capital outlay, property, and technology to the finance conversation, since it's largely financial and financial, would make sense to just sort of combine that.
Except when we have the need to have like a work group because of specific conversations.
Their math.
Right, where it's going to be, especially this year coming up on capital outlay, could be the conversation around repurposing and the structure of what we're going to do with that. So all of these are all important. I mean, they're still all important. So maybe, I mean, you might have just convinced me that we still kind of keep them named for this year, as Courtney was mentioning too. And then at the end of the year, we'll come back and revisit this and say, do we just sort of like also have a procedural diet in terms of what we're going to name and how we'll name those at the end? So, I mean, is there any harm in keeping them named as they are for now? Because they're all going to have some level of importance this year and some regular some need for us to like meet regularly, especially around capital. And we know with instruction and accountability, with all the stuff coming up with the strategic plan and the monitoring and all of those pieces. So it might just stand as it is for now for this year.
The only harm, and I don't know that that's the right word, is just efficient and effective use of time. And I think if all of these continue to remain committees of the whole, and we continue to have the work of the full staff and this full production to do at every committee meeting, rather than having 3 people meet in work groups or something to iterate and negotiate and discuss and ask questions and get details out, I think that's less of a burden on the district staff, frankly, where we can then sort of elevate those conversations to the full board meeting. So it just allows for less meetings, less time if we were to do that.
Have we said on the standing committees that it had to be the committee of a whole?
No, that's coming in.
Okay.
Board of Education Committee.
So I mean, it doesn't mean that.
I will say that we're going to have some
Big meetings coming up. Yeah.
On capital outlay. I'd say a series of them. And so just how do we navigate that? The wording. I mean, does it, could we just call it an ad hoc? I think it's going to require a meeting of the whole. Just because something is ad hoc, does that necessarily negate a meeting of the whole?
No,
No.
because we would still bring it back. I mean, we'd have to re-educate everybody to get on board, but hopefully we're doing things differently because there would be a lot more reading material that we'd all have ahead of time to get ourselves, up to speed. I mean, I really like that process, and I think the district likes that as well because it saves them time, right? We're not sort of stuck on just getting like these presentations and then asking a series of questions, but getting it ahead of time and then being able to ask questions and then come and clarify. I think, personally, I think it's like Board of Education members may serve on the following committees. And I think if we just leave it as such and don't say that they're standing, but that we may serve on those.
May serve on the following, either as committees or ad hoc.
I don't know if we have to get that because the ad hoc committees, we could have other ad hoc committees that may be appointed for other like purposes or for other projects that could come up. I mean, I don't anticipate that we're going to have a whole lot more coming up other than these big 5 topics at this point. I don't know.
So I'm just confused how if we're on the SOFG, this doesn't change anything. Then this doesn't reduce our governance. It doesn't align with what Dr. Mr. Crable, I'm sorry, I don't know. AJ. I mean, a lot of this stuff is already going to fall under the progress monitoring dashboard that we have coming up. And so a lot of this is going to be, we're making duplicitous work by having additional standing committees that isn't really addressing the student outcomes.
But what I'm proposing is that we don't make them standing committees.
Oh, you're saying all 5 of them?
That 3 of them will be standing and committees of the whole. Is that what you were saying then?
Well, I'm thinking out loud because we're thinking out loud together here, but I think that, so we know that we have to have standing committees for sure under the law that has right now is finance and audit. That's really all it tells us is finance and audit. And then the others committees that we may have would be policy, capital, and instruction and accountability.
It seems that we, go ahead. May serve on the following
Be standing committees of the whole.
committees.
I, at this point, am really uncomfortable with what the conversation might look like. I mean, I do appreciate the format that we're working on with submitted questions. It's taking care of a lot of just the detail kinds of questions, the editing, the specific questions, but there is substantive discussion that we need to have on any number of subjects. And
But we don't
capital
need a
outlay.
standing committee for that though either. I mean, I
So-
think we do it
so
when it's a
then-
targeted conversation.
My question then is what's going to be more efficient to break up the discussion so we have more shorter conversations and discussions, or find ways of putting it all into regular meetings. And I do feel like especially capital outlay is something that absolutely should not be done by a committee that's not of the whole. This is something that impacts every single district. Our constituents are looking to us for what's going to happen with capital outlay. And as we look at repurposing, I think it's going to involve a lot of discussion and serious thought. So I think that's critical. I don't think we've found our way yet, whether or not instruction and accountability can really and truly be met, if the needs for that can be met within the regular meetings or not. I think it makes sense that eventually it will be absorbed. I'm not sure if we're there yet, given the amount of conversation that we need and what that's going to look like.
I mean, what I don't want to see, I mean, and this is just me personally, is I don't want to see a series of meetings. We've got the first and the third, and then we've got an ongoing meeting here, an ongoing meeting there, and an ongoing meeting there, because that's not fair to the district, and it's not fair to us either. So I think that's the whole intention here, is that we know we have to manage finance. I like the way that we've been doing finance, where we have a meeting and then we have, we just go ahead and do the consent agenda and we get it out of the way and it's done. And that makes a lot of sense. Audit has been fairly simple because it's what, once a quarter, once a month for a period of time. But then like all these other conversations, I don't want to have like a regular, I mean, I think even on the policy committee is like, I think we have to get together with the council so that we could structure our game plan on how we're going to do that and what and how we're going to do it. So there might be a series of special board meetings for us to get a little bit more training under our belt so that we know how to do that and then finish it up. But I think that once we get through that process, we should be we could have policy committee meetings, but we shouldn't. How often are they now? Just once a month? Yeah.
It seems to me like, we've already figured out that we don't need to have meetings just to have meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And that we've canceled any number of meetings because there really hasn't been a substantive agenda. So in the last few months, I think we've been much more flexible about how we've done meetings.
So what are we afraid to let go of? Is that the titles of these meetings?
May I suggest?
It's making sure that we can address the issues that come up in them.
Okay,
That's all.
Can
Whether
I-
it's.
sure. Go
one
ahead,
meeting or
board member.
another.
Tapio Romero.
I'm trying to put everybody's, suggestions together, then based on what we're learning. And a part of me even wishes like Ashley could jump in and just help like guide us to ensure that we're not still following like old habits, but really guide us into being more effective and efficient. Because the way I assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, none of these responsibilities are going away. Like we still have the full ability to maintain and govern the way we need to and be fully aware of everything that's happening within the district. Ultimately, we're just trying to be more efficient of the staff and of our own time going forward. But I think ultimately, like we're going to have to eventually make some changes that are going to be difficult for all of us, myself included. And what are we willing to adjust to? What are we willing to trust the people that we brought on board to really guide us appropriately to make these decisions that are best for the district? I don't want to get stuck in doing it the same way because we've always done it that way.
So that's what I was trying to get in on as well. I think what we've learned is the single responsibility, the role of a school system is to improve student outcomes. And that's it. That's what we should be spending our time on. That's what we should be focused on. And so respectfully, Board Member Peterson, I disagree that every conversation around capital outlay has to be a discussion of the committee of the whole. I don't think that's what my constituents care about. Frankly, I've not heard that from any constituent who say that they're interested in a committee meeting on capital outlay. People are tremendously interested in student outcomes. They want to know that we're going to change the direction of this school district. They want to know that we're going to pull up those numbers, and that's our responsibility. So I think we need to push ourselves to spend as much time as possible, as much time in our board meetings, as much time when we're up here, focused on student outcomes, focused on those goals, focused on the progress monitoring. And if we can help the district by streamlining with removing some of these committees, then I think we should. And so for that purpose, I would move that we approve this policy BD1 by changing the shall to may. As I mentioned in the Board of Education members shall serve, change that to may serve on the following standing committees. I would suggest the following standing committees are finance, audit, and policy.
This is Crystal. I'll second that.
Do you have any other discussion? We go for a roll call.
My only concern is I've been looking at some other school districts and some things that have come up where they have found in court that they have gone against their Open Meetings Act. And I know ours is not exactly the same as other states. So when we're not leaving it open to the public also, then they have found that they are violating, maybe not exactly what it says, but they are saying they are violating the Open Meetings Act by not letting everything be open to the public. And so I just want to caution everybody about that because that has already happened. And I just worry that that could happen to us. And if it ends up in court, we would likely lose if we do that. That's just what my concern is from seeing what's happening in, courts across the country when it comes to the Open Meetings Act. And so a big part of one that I was looking at, it dealt with like everything being on the consent agenda. And then they'd be done in like 5 minutes. And they said that is definitely a violation of the Open Meeting Act, not leaving things for people to hear. So that's just my concern.
So,
I do have a question sort of along those lines. Are the questions that we submit in writing and get answers to, are those accessible to the public?
They will be.
Because I think that's absolutely critical. I mean, that's a part of what that conversation
We ask
is.
people ask us
Mhm.
questions and then we ask the questions. So they need to know the answer.
And I mean, the other thing is, I do think, with all due respect, when we start talking about repurposing schools, when we start talking about closing schools, there will be a great deal of concern. And to have any of those conversations that are not open and transparent and accessible to the community
No one is
would
suggesting they're
be,
not open.
it would be a huge mistake. So
may I
then,
suggest?
so then,
that-
I mean, my point is that then who is organizing those meetings, who's chairing those meetings? Is that reducing the burden on the executive committee and on other board members, or is it increasing the burden on a smaller number of people? I mean, I do agree that in fact, instruction and accountability, when we start talking about student outcome governance, that's what our regular meetings should be. And I think it makes sense to transition that into our regular board meetings because that's what it is.
I'd like,
But I
So
do
I
have
just-
concerns about.
I just want to add that under the student outcomes focused governance, it actually recommends no standing committees. So there doesn't need to be any standing committee on this. So that's what I'm saying is like, I think we're just wedded to the language on that. And I would almost just even strike that whole paragraph because we've set it up at the top in terms of the Board of Education will have a finance and audit subcommittee because that's required. And then we do say that we will have it says members of each standing committee. I hate that it says standing committees in there, but let me read this a little bit more. But committees shall have deliberative and recommending powers only. I love where it says that, but we go ahead and we name standing committees and I don't think we need to. I think we just need to say we will potentially do that and that's it. We are going to do what's required by law to have the finance and the audit subcommittee, and the Board of Education may establish additional committees. I don't even want to call them standing committees, but we may establish additional committees. That's up at the top, and the chairpersons and members of each of these committees. I don't even want to say that they shall be elected by the Board of Education at this meeting. We could go ahead and strike that. And may serve as non-voting because we don't even have voting powers on that. So I think that whole first paragraph just needs to be rewritten and redone to just state what it is that, just basically just stating that we may establish additional standing committees, but that we really are only going to have those two. I'd have to go
or
back
just
and look at this.
establish additional committees.
So I think here's what I'm thinking is that this piece needs a little bit more work. It's not quite there yet. It's too wordy. It's got too much stuff in it. And we need to still go back and clean this one up. And so
Board Member Montoya Cordova, there is a motion on the floor, though, that needs to be either voted, that needs to be voted on in regards to that specific language first.
Okay, so can I remind me of what the motion was?
You made do you want me to repeat your motion?
Good.
Okay, sure. So the motion was for Board of Education members, fourth paragraph down, Board of Education members may serve on the following standing committees: Finance Committee, Policy Committee, Strike Capital Outlay, and Audit Committee, Strike Instruction and Accountability Committee. Was the motion put forth by Board Member Gonzalez and second.
Let's just go ahead and call for the vote on that
we'll
then.
vote that, and then
Okay,
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
I'm so confused.
State it again. Could
I
you, could
really
you
am.
restate
Sure, okay.
the motion?
So the motion,
I do have.
do you want me to restate it, or Dr. Albright, do you want to reread it? What's,
Go ahead.
okay, so I'll restate it. So it says, fourth paragraph down, Board of Education members may serve on the following standing committee: Finance Committee, Policy Committee, Strike Capital Outlay Property and Technology Committee, Audit Committee, Strike Instruction and Accountability Committee.
Okay,
That was the motion.
okay. As a friendly amendment, can we just say the Board of Education members may serve on the following committees? Don't even say abstaining, and just still have as finance, policy, and audit.
I'm fine with that friendly amendment.
Okay,
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
No.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez.
Yes.
and Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
that's okay. I know we kind of got long-winded on that one. I'm sorry to take us down a rabbit hole. Okay, so we're moving on. So where are we? That was BD1, right?
Correct, you're on procedural directive, Board of Education committees.
Okay, so we're on the Board of Education Procedural Directive. This is item D. And I think, board, we just need to remember, we're going to go back and we're probably going to have to come back and revisit this anyway. We're going to have to clean it up. So this one says standing committee chair elections. I don't want the word standing in there. I think it's just committee chair elections.
Can't we just strike the word standing from the entire each document, like
Mhm.
policy here?
I think that then implies that ad hoc committees or other committees would have to have this procedure.
Well, but wouldn't we want to have so let me just kind of ask a quick question on that. So let's say that we're going to have a committee group on capital outlay and stuff. So then would the board determine who's going to be our lead for us on that? Or we would have nominations for that? Or what would we do?
Currently, that's part of the president's responsibility.
Okay.
As it's written in the,
Okay. So if we determined that we needed a work group or whatever we want to call it on capital outlay, the president could name who would be the primary board members that would take that. Doesn't mean that it's not open. It doesn't mean that we don't get to participate. It's just who would take the lead for the board on that particular topic. I'm fine with that. So the only word that we'd be removing is the word standing.
no, I think it's staying here because we kept it in the policy.
We already approved.
Oh, that's right.
Except that we would be taking out then the 5 standing committees,
So
right?
That's the only thing that changed though, is on that one paragraph though.
right, so what I was going to suggest is change 5 to 3, since we just approved a policy that names 3 standing committees.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 2 places in that first bullet that says 5, we would change those to 3. Sorry, the first bullet that's under types of standing committees and membership.
Okay.
Then we would cut out instruction and accountability and capital outlay and technology. Then on to the next page 19, I think there's still conversation to be had on whether they're all committees of the whole or not. But then later down on the page, 19 and 20, we would cut the bullets related to capital outlay, property, technology, and instruction and accountability. And I would suggest that we add a bullet around aligning student outcomes focused governance and strategic plan under both finance and policy.
So if we were to name a committee then around instruction and accountability, because we're going to need that, I foresee us needing that, then because it's not in here, how do we set the governance for it?
You as the board president would determine.
Just, okay. So I'd have to remember this paragraph.
Committees maybe.
Because wouldn't that be kind of like an ad hoc committee
Yeah.
anyhow? And that is in here on page 21.
Not just the.
Because it says that the ad hoc committees may be appointed by the president or the board as deemed necessary.
Mhm.
So that's in there if it's going to be like an
Okay.
ad hoc committee, right?
All right. I understand that. So we would be striking then. The language that you're recommending to strike, Board Member Gonzalez, would be everything around those other, so instruction and accountability and capital, correct? And we'd only have the 3 standing committees. But then what could happen immediately, just so that we could get everybody's tension a little bit down, is that the board president immediately could state, we're going to have 2 ad hoc committees. One's going to be on capital and the other's going to be on instruction and accountability. Okay. And we could make some determination on like how many and who. And yeah, I just have a feeling that if there's going to be 4 or more that are going to be on there, then it's a board meeting. So just to be aware of that. Okay.
It says it'll be at the time of formation. So
Okay.
you'll decide that.
Okay. Yes. All right. So any other recommended changes? And I think on this one, we do have to have action on it.
Well, I guess I want to clarify the last thing, which was a suggestion to add a policy, I'm sorry, to add a bullet. And I'm not sure about the right wording for it. So I just wanted to make sure that it gets captured by our board services staff. So what I was suggesting was adding a bullet related to, and for example, under policy committee, add a bullet that says something like ensuring that all APS policies align with student outcomes focused government or strategic goals or something like that. And the same with finance committee, adding a bullet there that says ensure that financial decisions align with student outcomes focused governance and goals and guardrails or something like that. I'm not quite sure of
Okay.
the language, but
How about it? I'm looking at it on the first one. It says develop and review policies of the Board of Education to ensure an enabling environment for all students to learn and thrive in alignment with student outcomes focused governance.
fine with that.
Okay.
Can you clarify where that is?
That's under the policy committee. The mission of each committee are outlined below. Page 19, the first bullet for the policy committee states that. I can go back. Let's see. Let's look at the finance piece. Is there a similar place where it could, let's see. I mean, or maybe Board Member Gonzalez, maybe it needs to just even state it right at the top, right? That the purpose or that the mission or the purpose of these committees is to be in alignment with student outcomes focused governance. And if we state it up there at the top once, then it's done and it's implied for all of them.
Just right where it says the missions, right above. The missions of each committee are outlined below. Can you add it there?
And what page is that, Board Member?
Page 19. I don't know if that's a place that you can add it. Page 19, right before policy committee, it says the missions. It already says missions. So if we somehow put it in there, I think that might work. Because then it'll have to do with basically all of the committees. That might be important. That's important to do.
What do you think, Board Member Gonzalez?
I'm okay with it being placed there. I think what I'm noodling over is the import of it stating the importance of aligning to the goals and guardrails specifically. And I'm wondering if saying alignment with student outcomes focused governance is clear enough.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think part of the strategy for us is to go through that whole, alignment that we still have to do with Ashley as part of our consultation. And she is texting me. I just want to let you know, she's giving me a little bit of coaching on the back end here. Thank you, Ashley. Because we're going to go through that process, I think we're going to be able to come back to that. I think if we're all in alignment and agreement that that's our goal, is we want to get to that alignment. Maybe the language right now isn't something we have to worry about just yet, because we can always come back and amend this. But I mean, we can state it, kind of ad hoc right now, where we're just stating it, that that's our goal, is that it's going to be aligned with the student outcomes focused governance, or the mission of each committee, will be to first and foremost to be aligned with the student outcomes focused governance. And then we can clean it up later, maybe.
Yeah, I think how you said it, the mission of each
Mhm.
committee is to be in alignment with a student outcome focused government. I mean, I think that's what you said.
Okay.
Um,
Go ahead.
if
Laura.
I may. So if at all possible, I would like us to make the changes that we need to change, because we've spent a year of, we'll get back to it.
Mhm.
And I mean, we're here, we're working on this right now.
Okay.
And so, all due respect, Ashley, wherever you are, I would like us to maybe write something down specific now, so that it isn't something later on a to-do list that we have to go back to again. So just an idea, under the policy committee, adding a bullet. I like the idea of the missions of each committee are outlined below, and will, ensure that policies are aligned with SOFG. But specifically under policy committee, I would like to add, ensure that policies aligned with student outcomes focused governments, comma, the APS district strategic plan, and goals and guardrails. And then under the finance committee, I would like to add a bullet that says, ensure budget preparation and financial planning align with student outcomes focused governance, comma, APS district strategic plan, and all goals and guardrails.
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
I don't know.
It's just the finance one.
Yes, okay. Ensure budget preparation and financial planning align with student outcomes focused governance, comma, APS district strategic plan, comma, and all goals and guardrails.
I have to ask a question. Is it a concern that we don't have a strategic plan at this point?
Not for me. I think it's coming. So
I know it's
yeah.
coming, but
No,
moving forward, that won't be a problem?
I don't believe it is, because it's assumed that there will be a strategic plan and a budget. So they should be aligned to that. Yeah.
and
As they're coming. Yeah.
sorry, and also just to make sure that for all of these policies that we've done, and just I'm hammering this, that it moves back to policy committee chair as the Board of Education member, because in all of our drafts, it's been struck. And so because we have decided to keep the policy committee, we need to move that responsibility back to the policy committee chair.
Okay.
And then I think since we did added to the policy and to finance committee. And since we're saying what we're saying at the beginning, then I don't know if we should say something in the audit committee also, but I wouldn't have any idea how to do that. But if it is saying the missions of each committee are going to be in alignment with SOFG, then we have got to probably put something there.
So
Maybe it's better to not have it above and only have it in the two spots.
yeah, because also I do believe that the audit committee responsibilities are pulled directly from
The
statute.
Audit Act. yeah.
Right, and so it doesn't need to have additional SOFG
know
language
that.
because it's statutory.
Yeah.
But we would still need to vote for policy chair, right?
Correct.
We have not voted for that.
Okay.
So maybe then, Member Gonzalez, we're going to have to take off with the missions of each committee that,
Mhm.
because of
Not audit.
the audit
Right.
is just governed by.
And what also is coming out of here then is the capital outlay, property and technology committees and the instruction and accountability committee. So we're only stating the approaches for those other committees. Okay. Lots of amendments, lots of changes. You guys able to catch up? Go ahead, Board Member Gonzalez.
Well, we,
Well, I'm just making sure we have any other discussion. I was-
if you are caught up on the changes so far,
Oh, sure.
I wanted to open up a conversation around the first bullet on the top of page 19. Each standing committee will be a committee of the whole board. Board members are members of each committee and are encouraged to attend all committee meetings. Again, I think this should not be all committees of the whole. I think each standing committee will be a committee of, I would suggest 3. I'm fine with 4. And then I think we could strike board members are members of each committee to committee members are encouraged to attend all committee meetings. But open to discussion on that.
So then how many, Member Gonzalez, you don't want to put any number in there. You don't want to say there'll be 3 board members or 5 board members. You don't want to put a
It'll
number.
just be,
My suggestion would be 3, but I don't
It would
feel
be.
strongly about that. So
Mhm.
if it makes sense to not have a number, that's
Mhm.
great. If it's better to say 3 or 4 or whatever, but I think saying that each committee is a committee of the whole is where we get tied up. And
I think so too. I agree with that each committee will be a committee of the board. And
And so is membership voluntary? Is membership appointed? Is membership elected? How is membership constituted?
And votes.
well, we can determine that. That's for us
Mhm.
to determine. My suggestion is only that we shouldn't have them all be committees of the whole.
And then the other part of that is, and I think this speaks to Board Member Mueller-Aragon's concern that she expressed earlier, is how do we guarantee shared knowledge and transparency to the community? Because I think that Open Meetings Act work is very real. And to couch it as, well, we only have 3 members that are meeting, somehow really, I don't think supports the intention of the law,
Mhm.
even if it might speak to the technicality of the law. And I feel really strongly, we have at this point, in all transparency and honesty, we have a divided board. And I think it's really important that every single board member have an opportunity to have the same knowledge and the same opportunity for input.
So one of
in
the
the
things that will
conversation.
happen on that though is because those committees or a work group or whatever would be established, the president gets to make the membership, right? So if there's a real, and quite frankly, I mean, if there was a lot of this group is really passionate about that particular piece and everybody wants to be part of it, I would say then the membership is going to include everybody. But if there is a small group of, there's a topic that doesn't necessarily have the same passion for everybody, and maybe there's only still 3 or 4 that really want to participate in that, they would. Then we still have that capacity as a board to determine that membership. I don't think it's about exclusion. I think it's all about inclusion and and the will of this board to, and they're wanting to participate. So and you know this already, Barbara, if there's 4 of us that are going to be in a room, it's an open meeting. It's a quorum, so it'll have to be announced. And I have the suspicion from this particular group that it's probably always going to be a quorum. I can't imagine that there will be a time when it's not a quorum. So I think we just have to sort of give ourselves a little bit of grace as we're going through that process and we're coming into it. Because I know that there's been some conversations, and I'll just put this about wanting to pull us into some conversations and not have all the board, because it doesn't necessarily impact all of the members in a way. And we should be able to have that ability to do that, because sometimes that first conversation is really critical, because if it's not going to impact your district in the same way that it might impact mine or somebody else's, having that first conversation is critical. And then thinking about the board president coming to the committee, coming to the board president and saying, now's the time, we're really going to need to pull in more members. Then we will pull more members in and we'll have it and we'll flesh it out completely. But I think it gives us an opportunity to have some of those conversations without getting ourselves all screwed up with quorum stuff, because sometimes you do have to have that conversation.
I mean,
Sorry.
Mhm.
I just wanted to clarify one thing. So in the previous policy, we did vote to approve
Mhm.
3 standing committees.
Mhm.
So for those 3 standing committees, there is process laid out here.
Mhm.
For any additional committees, that's where the
Mhm.
process is,
It's all lined out too.
well, that's where it can be determined or can be appointed by the president.
Mhm.
So for policy, finance, and audit, that's what we're talking about here. We could certainly, to your earlier point, create a capital work group
Mhm.
that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 members.
Right.
Well, not 1, because that wouldn't be a committee. So I think just clarifying that we did vote to have 3 standing committees
Mhm.
already. So this is really just to state what is the procedure for those 3
Mhm.
committees right now. And I wanted to respond to the question around how do you get up to speed? I mean, for me, it's by reading the materials and reading the minutes, looking back at the minutes, watching the video. And those are all public now and can be shared as well. And so I do think it's just a more effective use of time to have fewer board members in that meeting. If it's important, the agenda is posted, you go, you ask your questions. If you don't go or can't go, that's kind of the way it's always been, is that you don't or you can't, and you can get your questions answered through email. So there's no intent certainly to obfuscate anything, to keep anything hidden, to have any. I mean, for me, it's really just about efficiency and having this procedural directive be less specific so that we have the flexibility to do things a little bit more effectively.
I agree. All right, so I think, do we have a motion on this one? No, we're still playing with some edits.
No.
So, and thank you for that reminder, Board Member Gonzalez was taking us back that this procedural piece would just be for the pieces that we just approved ahead of that we would have those 3 standing committees. This talks about how those 3 standing committees would function, basically what their responsibilities are. And then it does outline if we're going to have some other committees. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to need a capital. There's no doubt. So we're going to name that one for sure. And we're going to need something on instruction and accountability. But we will name those as ad hoc committees.
And if I'm, Dr. Albright, Ashley did just let me know that something that I said was redundant. So if you can go where I said, student outcomes, focused governance, strategic plan, goals and guardrails. She said, I don't need to have strategic plan in there. So just do student. Well, but I feel like we need to have the strategic. Well, remove goals and guardrails, please, from both sections that
You got it.
because goals and guardrails is redundant.
Lovely having coaching on the back
and
end.
then
I will take a stab at the motion.
Okay, go for it.
So I'd like to move that we approve the procedural directive for Board of Education committees with the following edits. So on page 18, under the header types of standing committees and membership, the first bullet, we change 5 to 3. The next sentence under that same bullet, we change 5 to 3. We strike the sub bullets of instruction and accountability and capital outlay property and technology. On page 19, in that first sub bullet, each standing committee currently reads, each standing committee will be a committee of the whole board. I think is just each standing committee will be made up of board members, and committee members are encouraged to attend all committee meetings. Also still on page 19, the header of policy committee, we are adding a bullet that's Dr. Albright already captured, but it's something like ensure all policies align with student outcomes, focused governance, and APS strategic plan. Then we are cutting the section Capital Outlay Property and Technology Committee, which leads into page 20 as well. Finance Committee on page 20, we are adding a bullet, which Dr. Albright captured, Board Member Jackson's language, ensure budget preparation and financial planning align to student outcomes focused governance and strategic plan, I think. Then we're cutting Instruction and Accountability Committee. And on page 22, we are striking the change that's there to keep the Board of Education member for Policy Committee Chair. I think that's it. That I make that motion.
So on the, let's see, wait. So each committee chair shall approve an agenda. Do we have anything in there that says that each chair should report to the full board
Where are you?
after their committee meeting? I mean, we're all together on these standing committees because it's committees of the whole. Never mind. Strike my thought. I was just thinking out loud. We're good. I'm good with those.
So
I mean, I
second,
think the thing that still stands is that decisions ultimately are in the hands of the board as a whole.
That's clear in here.
Mhm.
It's the last bullet on 19. No committee shall may take any action that shall establish policy for the board or make any decision that shall be binding upon the board.
They don't get to make, they're not a decision-making entity.
Committees are deliberative and recommending powers only.
Mhm. Okay, so
So then at then at a regular board meeting, then Member Peterson, then we'll still, even though we may not be a member of the committee, we'll still be able to have our opportunity to ask our questions for the public to be able to hear anyhow.
all right. So may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya,
Second.
yes, Courtney Jackson seconded. Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes, with the changes.
Peggy Mota Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
and Courtney Jackson.
yes.
Okay, so now I'm going to jump to the last part where so we have the Finance Committee Chair, and I believe we nominated and voted in Board Member Tapia Romero. We nominated and voted in Vice President Mueller Aragon for the Audit Chair. And now we need to have a nomination and for policy.
I'll nominate Board Member Gonzalez to chair policy, just based on her expertise and the in-depth work she's already completed on this.
I know it doesn't need a second, but I'll second.
We have a roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez,
Yes.
and Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, so I think the only other, let's see, we have all of those, we have the chairs, because I don't think at this meeting, we're going to talk about any of the other committees that we're all currently involved in or activities that we're doing. I think we'll do that at another day. So I think we are done with those pieces. So congratulations to everyone. The next Board of Education meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 18th, 2023 at 5 p.m. in the John Milne Community Boardroom of the Alice and Bruce King Educational Complex, 6400 Uptown Boulevard Northeast, or virtually at www.aps.edu. And the next special Board of Education meeting will be held on Wednesday, January 25th, 2023 at 5:15, or immediately following the Finance Committee meeting in the John Milne Community Boardroom of the Alice and Bruce King Education Complex. And with that, we are adjourned. Meeting number 1.